Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the in-person and Zoom citrus seminar. Today's program offers 1 CEU for pesticide license renewal and 1 CEU for certified crop advisors. If you need CEUs, email me your name, email address, and license number. The title of the seminar is Vector-Transmitted Citrus Pathogens, Diagnosis and Management Options. Our guest speaker is Dr. Ozgur Batuman, plant pathologist with UF-IFAS, Southwest Florida Research and Education Center in Immokalee. In his presentation, Dr. Batuman will introduce two of the exotic citrus viruses and their vectors, diagnosis, and management options. Because of the widespread endemic diseases in citrus groves, he will also discuss the potential new treatments for controlling other diseases such as HLB, citrus canker, and Phytophthora. Dr. Batuman, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mongi. Anyone recognize these symptoms? Can you see my pointer? So I see some nods. That's a good start for interaction. In my case, I would be, of course, yes, I know, it's HLB, right? All right, so we are getting there. Anyone recognize these symptoms on the fruit here? It's canker, okay, all right, anyone else? That's lovely, I love this interaction, so thank you very much. And this one obviously here, obvious to me, but not to you maybe, but something that you don't recognize, right? But obviously you can see some aphids, hopefully. Whiteflies, can you see some whiteflies? Can you see some psyllids? All right, so that's actually summarizes my talk. All right, so in the sense that, yes, we do have HLB, and we are very familiar how to recognize HLB. And more or less, we know that it's very challenging disease, but somewhat we are doing our best to manage it. This slide has two purposes here. Remind us that HLB is still out there, an elephant in the room. It's the biggest problem that citrus industry has it. It's been very challenging, and maybe we are hoping that some of the new managements that we are working on will help our citrus growers to come back and produce more and high quality fruit. The second purpose of this slide is to remind you, when I'm talking about other diseases, why is important to remember that we have already most devastating disease in our citrus crop. So other diseases that I will be talking about can be very minor, and even better, we don't have them. Yay! Finally, we can say now we don't have those diseases, but we do have HLB. So if they become another problem for us, they can devastate us. So speaking of HLB, I will not just pass through. You are all aware that many research groups, including many faculty here, are working hard in many different projects to come up with practical and effective solution for HLB management. My group is participating so many different projects, including making transgenic or gene editing that hopefully citrus trees will be resistant to HLB, with collaborations with other faculty in Gainesville or other part of the United States, or with private companies. For example, in here, we have a project with the Bayer, one of the biggest pharmaceutical company in the world. that we are screening their chemical libraries to figure out if we can find some chemical or antimicrobials in their library that might help us combat with HLB and even other diseases. In this case, yes, we did screen so many different chemicals, and one that we are focusing on, although it's plant defense inducer, is not going to cure HLB, but in combination with other treatments, hopefully it will help with protecting young trees from HLB, and even better, canker. So it's so nice and encouraging results that we have. We are repeating our experiments, and hopefully next time when we have a citrus seminar, I can focus on only on that particular aspects of HLB management and potentially canker as well. So another idea, another project that we are participating is trying to figure out whether the resistance seen in Australian limes or finger limes can be transferred to our citrus that we grow here, such as Valencias or Hamlin. In this project, we are using key lime or finger lime as an interstock, hoping that peptides providing resistance will move to the scion and rootstock, and it will give some protection to HLB. So these experiments are running in our greenhouse and in the fields. But again, it's not the subject of our topic today, just sharing you that we are still working on HLB. We didn't forget, and we are doing so many other things. And of course, all you heard that the growers are now injecting oxytetracycline manually, almost 3 by 3. And we all hoping that oxytetracycline injection will help us to come back slowly to the normal production in coming years. But we know that it's very laborious and expensive injecting 1 by 1 trees. So we are with the ag engineer here collaborating with other scientists that we are trying to come up with the automated delivery system, such as here that we call ADS. And hopefully it will show you a short video. The idea here, grabbing the citrus trunk and injecting from 2 sides, oxytetracycline or some other chemicals that we might find effective with the citrus. The first video that you showed on the right bottom was the old prototype, the functional prototype that we tested in the field, but now ag engineers are updated. And if I can go and click on this, there will be a nice video showing the most up-to-date prototype that we are now conducting experiment with. So as you can see here, the more advanced effector, we call it, or you can imagine as a robotic arm that will extend and grab the citrus trunk and inject the oxytetracycline in this tank that we are keeping from the both side of the citrus trees, and that will be automated. That's all said. I know I don't have entire day to talk about what we are doing. Why we are here is talking about, as I mentioned, diseases that we don't have it. So why is now? If you can look at this slide here, you will see at least 4 different articles published just recently telling that some virus diseases in citrus is increasing in different parts of the world. The closest one, probably Los Angeles here, the last one here 2 years ago was found in the dooryard citrus in California. And this disease, I will talk soon, that it was confined in the East Asia, Middle East, but never found in North America. But look at the title. It says that it moved already here, okay? So those diseases that we are going to talk about, they have potential moving into Florida citrus. So we are not immune to other diseases that might arrive soon. So I thought I'll give you introductory slides, show you the symptoms, and what we should be doing before this pathogens arrive us, right? So when God forbid, arrive, we will know how to recognize and immediately stop the spread. So yes, citrus infecting viruses on the rise, and they are in our neighbors. For example, first virus disease that I will be talking about, leprosis disease. Again, we don't have this virus disease here in Florida, but you know what? This was originated actually from Florida. In late 1800s, we used to have this virus, very common in Florida, somewhat disappeared in the late 90s, 60s, sorry. And since then, we haven't found this. It doesn't mean that it will not come back. Because once we had it, it's been maybe even lurking somewhere in unknown host and waiting the right moment, right time, right condition to jump in. Or waiting someone to bring infected material from neighboring countries who have this disease, okay? So we don't have this disease, but I would like to show some symptoms, describe how to recognize, and be aware that this disease can be an immediate threat for our citrus. So now, do you know what is this symptom? It's not canker, right? But I totally understand. It's so similar, it's very difficult to distinguish. That's why I wanted to talk a little more, right? So there are characteristic symptoms of this leprosis disease. I'll say sometimes disease, sometimes virus, because I haven't figured out how not to confuse you. So this disease caused by 12 plus different, but very close cousins or sister viruses. All viruses, when it infects citrus, cause a similar disease. That's why it's a complex. We will call sometimes disease, sometimes virus, but what is most important, that 12 plus viruses will cause very similar symptoms that you are going to see today. That's why we will say citrus leprosis virus, okay? So don't worry about if this virus is RNA virus, DNA virus. It is RNA virus. Systemic, I will say systemic or local virus. So no, this virus cannot move in infected cells. That's why it causes local lesions like that I'm going to show. The next virus that I will talk, it will infect citrus systemically and move, will show different symptoms. So let's look at this, okay? So this virus can only infect where is introduced. How is introduced? By flat mite or Brevipalpus species. When mite stops on a leaf, on a twig, or on the fruit, and start feeding, where it's feeding, it introduces the virus. Since virus cannot move from introduced cells to this longer distances, what happens is plants stops the virus spread. So that's why you see now chlorotic spot, right? So that chlorotic spot that you are seeing, it's not viruses causing. Plant stopping to virus to move. That's why it's trying to kill that area or suppress that virus in that area. What we call it? Local infection. Localized infection, lesions, local lesions. All right? So this leprosis cannot move systemically, infects only where it's introduced. That's why you will see that chlorotic spots or necrotic spots like localized lesions on the fruit, on the leaves, wherever is introduced. And as you can see here, even in the young twigs, you see that necrotic spots. So these were the spots where mites were feeding, precisely flat mites, who are the vector of this disease. In some cases, those small spots, lesions that I showed you, looked like very benign, but when they coalesce, look what might happen. This disease used to be called scaly bark disease in Florida because it was really causing scaly bark, as you can see here, and was sometimes sloughing off making these branches weak, broken, and in some cases, if the mite population was so high, defoliation of the trees, fruit drop, etc. So wherever this virus introduced by the mites could cause these lesions. Okay, so let's have a look at the close-up picture of the lesion. As you can see here, chlorotic spot we call, right? So look at in the middle. Do you see that small dot over here? This is exactly where mite was feeding. So mite introduced this virus and plant now stopping in this area. That's why we have chlorotic spot. So leprosis will cause this and you will immediately recognize. Is that true or not? Can you recognize this easily? Chlorotic spot, can you see? It's, oh, interesting spot, right? So that's my point. So only leprosis will be able to do this. Okay? So this is one of the key message that I wanted to show. Of course, I've seen different things, but I don't want to confuse you. If you see such thing, what you're going to do, you're going to come and ask me. Because by looking at it, you will never know if this is leprosis or there was a stink bug last night and was feeding on it, right? So that's why you have pathologists, guys. I'm here. You have to come and ask me maybe. And so another symptoms. You see, they are not always the same. We call it chlorotic spot, but it's different. So this is two different mites were feeding. And here there are more mites feeding. So these are not spot anymore, coalesce, right? So you see it can get complicated. So that's why we will not just rely on only the symptoms that we are seeing here, but we will think of leprosis might cause such disorder. These are the classic, we call it textbook symptoms. Here, the young lesion is developing here where mites start feeding not long ago. But look at the old lesion here. It's already as bigger, and in the middle there is some gummosis, necrosis. So that's how young and old lesion looks like. And in most cases, if you turn the leaves, you will see the same lesion in the underneath of the leaves as well. Okay, so it can be confusing, but when you see this, trust me, you will remember these pictures. To me, it's a beautiful picture, textbook picture. You don't see this, of course, yeah? But when you see it, you will be able to associate maybe leprosis. That's what I'm hoping to achieve today. Get you familiarized with potential leprosis symptoms, okay? Was that clear? Chlorotic lesions on the leaves, right? So I said 12 different viruses causing leprosis. So one of them is actually causing not very nice, beautiful chlorotic or big chlorotic lesion. Some of them causing this small necrotic lesion with little chlorotic halo around it. But still almost the same virus, but the symptom is different now, right? But nevertheless, almost the same idea. Where mites is feeding, there are some symptoms. So localized necrotic or chlorotic lesions, right? Spots. Same on the stems, as you can see, starts very smooth here. Look at the young one, then become more slightly raised. And then when they coalesce, they become entirely different looking lesions. And sometimes it's really very difficult and canker. I feel like microphone is coming and going on the Zoom. If you are not hearing me, guys, please let me know. So here is the scaly bark disease that they used to call it. As the namesake, the bark is scaling. Young twigs that might fat on, the symptoms are starting, right? But from previous slides, you know that what will happen with this small lesions that starts, right? So I'm just making you familiarize with the symptoms. On the fruit as well, the same idea, totally same idea. Mites were feeding on these spots. Do you see the mite feeding spots? So the chlorotic small spots started. As the fruit expanded, tissues are expanding, and the lesions becoming bigger. And many mites, maybe they were having a party here, picnic, so they are very close to each other feeding. As you can see, some lesions are coalesced. Yeah, it looks different. But from left to right, you can see that how young lesion starts and becomes old, necrotic, and in some cases, sunken, right? Because the tissue around that tissue is growing and is trying to, compensate that area. So it's the natural course of all disease. Yes, sir. Yes. Excellent question. You will be surprised. This disease does not affect the quality of the juice, but the quality of the fruit, as you can see here, from fresh fruit. So only externally affecting. When it's damaging is, though, when you drop the fruit. So they can drop fruit, right? I told you, if you have a few mites, you will have nice, interesting symptom. But a lot of mites feeding on the fruit, especially close to the calyx, they will drop. Okay? So fruit drop, defoliation is the major cause of the damage. The major damage to our industry here. But if you are producing fresh fruit, though, now you cannot sell this fruit. So the question was, I'm not sure if you heard from the audience, if this virus affecting the juice quality. And my answer, hopefully you heard it, no. It's not. It's only external damage is causing, cosmetic damage, but in severe instances, causing the fruit drop for processing citrus. For fresh citrus, yes, it's causing bigger damage. So here's a close-up. So you see now is the necrotic spot is very small, necrotic spot. All that symptoms that we've seen is kind of changed now. And this is very easily to be confused with canker. I like that when you say canker. And there are black spot. I don't know if you are familiar with black spot. So it's getting almost like black spot, like, right? So it can be confusing. That's why please use me, use us to help you distinguish or diagnose this disease. Here is the classic example. On the upper pictures, leprosis that I showed you. On the bottom pictures, canker. I don't know how clearly seen from the screen here. There is a big differences to pathologists that who is familiar with the disease, but it might be very subtle for you. So here are the example. Entirely necrotic spot and maybe yellow halo around it. It's very similar to this maybe beginning of the leprosis, but if you look closely, there's even ring spots here, and necrosis only in the middle. The plant is trying to stop this virus, right? That's why it's in the this rings. Couldn't stop, moved, starts again, another ring. But in canker is necrotic and reason, rise necrotic spot. Here it's flat. When you touch it, it's flat. Same thing on fruit, very flat lesions. But when you really touch on cankerous lesions, you will see that scratching your hand. It's raised and scrappy, right? So that's the difference that you can have between leprosis and canker lesions. However, when you look at the stem lesions, I cannot distinguish, but maybe you can. I cannot. It's almost identical, okay? So those are the things that we have to be aware. So it's almost half an hour, and I'm not in half of my presentation. Not to scare you. But my point is, this virus can arrive Florida. Our climate conditions and everything that we are doing here to produce citrus is perfectly fit for this virus to thrive and cause damage. Okay? And as I told you, once we had this virus, so there is no reason this virus is coming back and causing damage even more. And why is that? Excellent. My first slides to remind you that we have already HLB. We don't want any other disease, right?
Ozgur.
So this virus will not come alone by itself. Either the mites will come from exported fruit, windblown, or the hurricane, I don't know what, they might come. But worst thing that can happen, that if someone illegally brings planting material, that will be our disaster. So it's the best that we don't bring such, such thing to Florida. Okay?
Ozgur.
And reason is also, this is very important, keeping this disease out of Florida is much easier. You see, we do almost nothing. But when it arrives, we will spend a lot of money and time to eradicate it, to stop it, and everybody will get hurt. Okay? So that's why I'm giving this talk. So was someone asking question? Peter, I'm listening.
Yes, I had a quick question. If it did arrive, what are the modern eradication options for something like leprosis?
Excellent question, Peter. Yes. First of all, definitely just to stop the spread and to understand what is happening, I'm quite positive that the local and federal authorities will put quarantine on your grow. And depending extent of the disease severity, probably they can even ask to remove your grow. So you will be losing your grow, right? And then it's not only you, because that federal authorities will put additional control measures to make sure that is not spreading neighboring areas. Your neighbors will be in quarantine as well. So it will be costly. Of course, Peter, it will be, first of all, killing the mite, eradicating the mites will be the critical starting point. After killing the mite, maybe removing the infected trees will be the way to go further. Have I answered your question, Peter?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So
Currently,
again,
we don't have the disease. Oscar, currently we don't have the disease, but we have the vector.
yes, we have the vector. Excellent point, Mongi. Yes. Okay. And again, why I'm here? Just to remind you guys, look what it says in the red. If you suspect anything, if you need help, please call us. Okay. We are here to help. Moving on to the next disease. It's totally different looking virus, isn't it? Symptoms. So one of the pictures that I showed in my title slide, I asked if anyone recognizes this. Nobody did. Perfect. I hope that will be the case for forever, right? So again, viruses are in the rise. This is another virus that managed to jump to California, to United States precisely, or North America. We didn't have it in North America, okay? This was originally found in Pakistan and later on found in neighboring countries, and it just stuck there. It caused damage, of course, in that where they found, but it didn't move much. Why? the global trade and global trafficking was not as extensive, as intensive as now. So unfortunately, this virus made it in California, and they found it in dooryards, okay? So that's why I thought maybe I will remind you guys this virus exists, symptoms, what you should be looking at, what you should be doing it, or what you should not be doing it. Symptoms, as name suggests, citrus yellow vein clearing virus. Long mouthful name, but it's actually describing the symptoms that we are seeing on the citrus leaves over here. As you can see, yellow vein, sometimes we call vein clearing. It's the fusion of the names, yellow vein clearing virus. And it's only on the main veins of the leaves, right? So it's very classic RNA virus that is systemically infecting citrus plant, going to the phloem. Phloem reminds you HLB, right? And HLB goes where? Everywhere. So this virus is similarly will go everywhere in the plant. Okay? So this is totally different than leprosis and causing different symptoms. And it can cause potentially more damage on lemons than other citrus varieties that we have. Although it can infect other citrus cultivars that we are growing here, but the main damage or more severe damage is happening on lemons and sour orange. Okay? So I just wanted to show some symptoms. And this virus is also sometimes showing symptoms, sometimes not, depending on when it's infecting, depending on temperature. Everything is affecting the symptoms. So it's really very difficult to distinguish this virus than others. And more so also, this virus infects not only citrus, other plants. For example, here listed some main ones, including grapevines and some crops like bean, cowpea, quinoa, and some weeds that I listed, common weeds. Do we have these weeds here? Yes, we do. Where? Everywhere. So it's been, if this virus introduced, it will have potential to survive very well in Florida. Okay? Some of the symptoms, just to make us familiar with the symptoms. So again, as name suggests, vein clearing. So usually you will see this yellow clearing symptoms on the veins. But sometimes you will, if you look at the beneath the leaves, water soaked like symptoms, but still localized on the veins of the leaves, right? So these are called water soaked like. Why? It's more greenish, different color of the veins, different than yellow veins that we are seeing from the upper side of the leaves, okay? So again, depending on the variety, depending on the temperature, depending on the virus variant that we have, you will have kind of different symptoms. And as I already said, lemons will show more severe and or more visible, let me put it this correctly, more visible symptoms, whereas some varieties will not show even symptoms, okay? Although they will be infected and they will be symptomless, but you will not see symptoms. Why is it important? I'll show you later. There's some more example here. You can see how drastic changes, right? It's very symptomatic, vein yellowing, off-shaped leaves, okay? Whereas sweet oranges, two different type of sweet oranges shown here in this figure, has no symptom at all, okay? So this is a little more confusing than leprosis. Some low quality pictures, unfortunately, because the source of the publication is very old. Pictures are not very smooth, but still, I bet you can see the yellow veins here on the lemons, right? So in lemons, you will have more chances of seeing these symptoms than any other cultivar that you will be looking at. But interestingly, again, now the cultivar change here, this is the Satsumas. Look at the symptoms. None of the symptoms so far I showed looks like, right? So in Satsumas now we have totally different symptoms. Backward twisted spring leaves here, if you can see very well. Maybe the best is here. If you look at this shoot, just little twisted band, and you know, it's not right looking flush. They are not sprouting straight. Here is cracked, deformed leaf edges. Reminds me something else that we often see here in Florida grows. Who can tell? I'll give you a clue. You call it notching. Leaf notching. What caused leaf notching? Weevils, more psyllid. Do we have psyllids here in Florida? Right, sometimes. So I'm glad that we are talking about. So the symptoms can be confusing, can be caused by many different insects or factors. So we will not rely on just looking at the symptom and saying, oh, this must be citrus yellow vein clearing virus that Dr. Batuman was talking. Oh my gosh, we have it. No, okay? But I'm just showing this for getting familiar. The more interestingly in Satsumas, however, as you can see here in this picture, they cause these groovings. And if you look at the non-infected Satsumas, very smooth. Infected Satsumas with the grooving symptoms of shape, small, sometimes as they refer, pumpkin-like fruits. I can assure you that fruit is not going to be fully expanded, tasty, or good looking. Okay? So yes, this virus can infect many citrus cultivars, can cause different symptoms. So we have to be careful when we are looking at the symptoms only and saying, what is that? Now, the most terrifying fact about this virus is in this picture. This picture says that this virus can be transmitted by a number of ways, including by aphids, whiteflies, and if insects are not enough, by grafting. If you are taking infected bud sores and grafting in your field, probably you will not see the symptom very quickly, but at some point you will start seeing symptoms because you are transmitted this virus by grafting. And most importantly, with the equipment, okay? So imagine that you have only one tree is getting infected, and 2 years later, you decided to add your trees. What did you do? You took this virus from one tree and introduced the entire row of trees, okay? It can be scary and it's dangerous. So let's hope that this virus not arrives here. It's almost identical slide, like in leprosis. We don't have it. We don't want it. Let's not bring it. Okay? And what it says in the bottom, I'm here for you. If you need my help, you know how to find me. We will be happy to help you diagnose if you are suspecting such disease. Okay? So I know I don't have a lot of time, but I really wanted to bring this subject up, even though it's not vector transmitted disease of citrus. But it is a very important disease of citrus. And if you think that water is a vector, it is, yes, vector transmitted disease now, Phytophthora. It's a Phytophthora is a oomycete or water mold. Name suggests that this animal loves water and it stays in the soil. So it is soil-borne, water-loving pathogen, or we call it Phytophthora, right? So Phytophthora incidences is rising in Florida, and it can cause different damage, different symptoms, depending on when is infecting, right? So it can cause foot rot or trunk and limbs on the right here. And I will show you some more pictures. You see the damage here? So that's the foot rot that caused on the trunk or on the limbs. Root rot, obvious, the name suggests your roots are rotting even though you don't see it, because this is, what is it? Water dwelling or soil dwelling lives in the soil. So the first attack will be always your youngest, the most beautiful and most important roots. Okay? That will cause root rot. And then if it splashes from the soil to the fruit, what happens? It can infect your fruit. We call it brown rot. You see it? The fruit is rot, right? That's called brown rot. But I'm just going to focus on the incidences of foot rot that I'm getting calls from number of growers these days. So as you can see here, on the trunk of different age and size of trees, some gummosis and bark scaling. Is it clear? Can you see the symptoms here? Symptoms and gummosis, right? So it's something oozing out from here. So clearly this plant is suffering from something. And even if you go and close by, this is not the same tree, but it's next door. If you just scrap it, you will see that it's not only surface, but all the way the cambium or the vascular tissue of the citrus, cyan here, as you can see, that's the trunk's cyan part, right? This is the rootstock part. This is the cyan part. And you can see almost disease is localized in what part? Cyan part. Why? Because all citrus cyans that we are producing, growing in Florida, sensitive to this disease. And why we are using rootstocks? Because they are tolerant to this disease or resistant. If we didn't have Phytophthora, trust me, we didn't have grafted trees. Do you see where I'm going? Thank you. So rootstocks that we are using in Florida, because it's protecting our trees from Phytophthora. Okay? But if Phytophthora jumps over your rootstock and hits to your trunk where the cyan is, there is no protection from rootstock. Make sense? So in this disease plants, trees, where are the damages? Right on the cyan part of the tree, right? So it's clearly something is coming directly to the trunk. What might be the cause? Any ideas? Sprinklers. From audience, I heard sprinklers. There you go. Well, sprinklers is hitting there, but why causing damage like that? What we said, Phytophthora is water mold, right? So it means Phytophthora is in your surface water that you are irrigating your plants. Okay? So I'm glad that you are paying attention and connecting the puzzle. So, of course, it's very difficult to control Phytophthora if you are too late. Phytophthora is controlled preventively, like the way that we brush our teeth. We brush our teeth to protect it, right? When it's infected and cavity, you do some other stuff. So before going there, I just wanted to share with you borrowed data from Syngenta. who runs surveys for our growers to see how much Phytophthora is living in your soil. Okay? Without knowing how much Phytophthora you have in your soil, you don't know what you can do or what you should be doing it. So Syngenta gives this service for free, by the way. So if you are a grower and if you are suspecting from Phytophthora, you can call them. They can come and collect soil samples totally free of charge and will tell you how much Phytophthora your soil have it and chances of getting this disease. Okay? So if you look at their historical data starting from 2013, 2021, there is a trend that the propagule, the living structure of this Phytophthora living in the soil is kind of increasing in the soil. So in the first slide, we said we have a HLB, right? One of the damaged HLB cause is roots damage, right? It's killing your roots, making your roots less dense, more weaker. Okay? So if you look at their data, historical data, consistently showing that the root mass that they are used to recover from soil sample decreasing. So there is decreased roots, increased pathogen. This is a sign for disaster if you don't protect it. Just like us. If we lost already teeth, we have only a few left. If you don't protect, you will lose that too. I'm not going to go into the chemical management, how you should be managing the Phytophthora, because there's fantastic section in the Florida citrus protection, citrus production and management guide. It's available, even the hard copies here. If you are here, you want to have some, please ask me. I'll give you the hard copy, but there is a link, or even if you Google it, you will find it. There's an entire chapter talking about Phytophthora, how you should be managing and what you should be doing it and not. So, but one point that I want to make it, HLB. So HLB making our citrus trees already weak. And we now know that HLB actually killing our roots much faster than previously. So the tree to keep up with the demand, making more roots, tiny roots, just to be able to suck the water and fertilizer that you are putting in. What does that mean? Tree is non-stop producing root for the Phytophthora that is there. It's mean Phytophthora now having a fantastic feast all the time. Not sometimes, almost all the time. When it's more dangerous, water-loving fungus. When there is a water, like rain started, right? Or when you are heavily irrigating your trees or grow. So what happens is amazing. Plant says, oh, yay, I found water. Sends signals to the other part of the plant's roots, exudates some hormones, chemicals, what Phytophthora is waiting for. Ring, ding, 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 dinner is ready. So what it says to itself, all right, it's time to release the dragon. Dragon is that the tiny spores that they know how to swim. Where they swim, where the food is. Okay? So unfortunately, HLB making this cycle so often that it's almost impossible to protect new roots. That's where I'm coming. Okay? So that's why maybe management of the Phytophthora is so difficult now, because you don't know when you should be applying your chemical. It used to be the flushing of the canopy finishes and root flushes, right? Then root flushing is finishing, then new flush on the canopy. So there is a cycle above the ground, under the ground, but that cycle is no longer exist. So what you have to do is now you have to follow your grow much closer to see when you have major flushes. When major flushes passes, it means what will happen next? Tree will make major root flushes, more roots. So that's the time, actually, you have to time for protecting your roots from the Phytophthora. Okay? But as I mentioned, it's almost impossible to catch that flushes. There are so many of them. But there will be a big flush and small flush. So you have to decide what you want to protect. Small portion of the roots that coming A time, or bigger portion of the roots coming time B. So you have to really find that right time and maybe put this protection in different times if your budget allows. Okay? So it's not like, oh, I did put Ridomil. It's very well known company brand. That's why I'm saying Ridomil. Now I am fine. Ridomil is protecting my roots. No. Imagine that how much water we are getting in the rainy season. Ridomil, there is no way that will stay there, stick around, and continue to protect your root. No. Okay? Every time that you have new roots, Ridomil will not be there. So I'm saying this just to think. HLB plus other disease. So we have to change how we manage things like we used to manage. Okay? And again, I'm here. My team is here doing a lot of work just to find additional management strategies. We call it integrated management strategies to cope with this disease. Not with the single bullet, with the silver bullet, but with number of approaches to make it this protection lasting longer and being more effective. With that, first of all, I'd like to thank for your attention, for finding the time, coming all the way here or joining from the Zoom. I really appreciate that. And second, I'd like to thank my team, collaborators, and of course, funding agencies that allowing me to give you a service here by providing funds that I need for testing your plants. Okay? With that, again, thank you very much for your attention. And I'm opening the floor for real questions now. If there is any question from Zoom, I would like to take it from you first, guys.
Yeah, the diseases you said, they're all not here, right?
Virus diseases that we talk, we don't have it here. We will do our best to bring, not to bring it, right? So that's the entire idea here, not to bring it.
Leprosis
And
is
if
in
it comes,
Mexico.
and if you see something like that, what would you do? There you go. My seminar was successful. Thank you very much. I don't need anything else. I didn't ask money. I didn't ask greeting, nothing. Thank you.
Leprosis is already in Mexico.
Leprosis is already in Mexico. I didn't want to use names, but neighbors, I said neighbors, not only Mexico. We have other neighbors too. And it's in the United States, so we don't know if they have it or not. Not only Mexico, okay? So we have to really vigilant and really look. And most importantly, when you have, small wound, you don't want to hide and not show. You take care of it. Let's take care of it. Don't hide. Don't be shy. When it's small, it's much easier to, patch it and close that wound. And if it gets out of hand, we cannot do anything.
Thank you, Dr. Batuman. Any question or comment? Again, if you are interested in CEUs, please send me an email and include your name, your email address, and your license number. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time.